Hello, everyone. This is Katie with Trans Refuge, and I have kind of a weird topic. Um, so, I'm an aviation enthusiast, and I've been through flight training for private license. And there is a video that has been making some headlines. It's going a little viral. Some people say this guy's going to get a very long prison sentence. Some people think he's going to get away with it. I don't know what's going to happen. Um, so, there's this guy named Trevor Jacob who he put up a video of himself flying his plane and apparently having an engine failure over the mountains, was wearing a parachute and jumped out of the plane, bailed out, and let this thing crash. As somebody who's flown some small planes and likes aviation, the idea of turning an airplane into an unguided missile is really quite astonishing that somebody would do this. So there's a lot of good videos out there. You can watch other people who, are a little more well versed on, FAA regulations and NTSB stuff and, how the investigation into this thing will probably take place. But, I'm just going to give some thoughts as somebody who has flown airplanes, has experience with airplanes, has experience, with the training that pilots go through. So I watched the video and you see the engine fail. He's got cameras all the way around this thing, watching him. And, the first thing I noticed is he didn't seem to have a sectional, which is, if you're not familiar with aviation, a sectional is a map, that any pilot would carry with them. They'd probably carry several with them, at least one for the region you're flying in. To try to figure out, okay, here's where I'm at. Here are my potential areas I could glide to based on my altitude and the glide ratio of this airplane, which you would know as a pilot. You should always know your best rate of glide and establish that. And, well, first you try to restart the engine, but we'll talk about that in a second. But basically, you're going to try to make it somewhere first. That is option number one, is try to glide somewhere. Because airplanes don't just fall out of the sky when the engine stops. They can glide, usually for quite a distance. And it doesn't really seem like in the video that he attempted that at all. You don't see him get out of sectional, look at it like, okay, this is where I'm at, and maybe over here I could, make it to this, maybe another little airport or even a field or something. It doesn't appear to be any attempt to, to come up with a plan of, okay, where can I land this thing? So then the other thing, so I'll talk about the engine start. Of course, the first thing you always want to try to do is try to restart the engine. So I've heard some people say, well, this plane was like from the 1940s and it was a prop start. So, okay, maybe, you're not going to climb out of the plane and get on the cowling and try to prop start this thing in the middle of the air. But what's really peculiar is this guy just kind of seems like his first resort was, well, I'm just going to bail out. And, as a pilot, that should have been the very last resort. I can tell you in my own flight training, my CFI would not sign off for me to even solo before, I could show that I was competent enough to come up with, an emergency landing, you know, and we did it a bunch of times. Like, you know, it's almost every time we go up, you're like, okay, your engine's off. What are you going to do? You know, and you're going to go through your emergency checklist and, you know, okay, we're going to try to restart the engine. And, you know, of course, you're going to simulate that the engine didn't start. Okay, what's your next thing? What are you going to do? You know, didn't really seem like he did any of those things. And as somebody who apparently owns a plane and is apparently a licensed pilot to be flying the plane, that should have been drilled into him from, you know, early on in his training. And so it's really hard for me to think that, you know, any CFI out there or any examiner who's going to sign off on your license, you know, your final exam, your check ride, would sign off on this guy, you know, who just like throws all the training out the window that most people get and just, well, I got a parachute on, I'm just gonna bail. Seems really weird. Like, you know, that is like the first thing you do is you like, okay, like getting this thing down safely is option one. And, you know, to actually bail out of an airplane with a parachute, you know, really ought to be the very last resort. So I don't know, you know, you can check this video out, see what you think for yourself. I found it really bizarre. Just watching the video was kind of weird. Like you can notice like the doors propped open the whole time. That seemed weird. Like, you know, was this plane even safe to be operating to begin with? And was it properly maintained? I don't know. Um, so anyway, I'm going to put the topic out there. Go ahead and discuss it in the comments. Tell me what you think. You know, my own suspicion is maybe there was some fraud involved, maybe insurance fraud, but I'm going to leave that up to the NTSB and the FAA. You know, they're the ones that get to investigate this stuff. I'm just a speculator, um, you know, watching this unfold and thinking, oh my goodness, this guy is at the very least in a lot of trouble legally. You know, because other than just ditching the plane and letting it crash, turning it into an unguided missile, he hired somebody to go recover the aircraft wreckage and removed it from the crash scene. You know, before the FAA and the NTSB could investigate. And that in itself, I'm pretty sure, I haven't read the FARs in a long time, but I'm pretty sure that's a crime. That is definitely a violation of the FARs, and he's going to get in trouble for that for sure. You know, that should have been left, you know, for investigation and analysis, because not only do they want to see if, you know, there was anything criminal going on, but they always want to look at the wreckage as it sits to determine if there was something with, you know, maybe the airframe. Maybe there was a problem inherent to the design of the airframe that causes crash. You know, so they want to make sure that they can document anything like that so that they can issue an airworthiness certificate or excuse me, an airworthiness bulletin for that type of aircraft or anybody else flying those. So this guy, he did some really shady stuff. It's kind of a crazy situation. So I don't know. Have at it in the comments. Talk about it. And I'm going to continue, you know, just kind of watching this situation from a distance and just being curious how this is going to turn out, because it's a weird situation, like somebody just bailing out of an aircraft. So yeah, if you watch some of the other videos, like one guy actually flew his aircraft, which has the same glide ratio and glide characteristics as the aircraft in the video. He flew it to the place where the guy bailed out, and he was able to glide to another airport with, I think he had like 3,000 feet of altitude still. He's like, yeah, I could have glided like another 4 miles. So kind of fascinating. Take a look at it if you haven't, and just leave some comments. I'm curious what people think of this thing. So till next time, see you later.